GoDaddy to host your domain and route it to AWS services like S3 can potentially be cheaper than using AWS Route 53, but it depends on a few factors. Here are some points to consider. GoDaddy domain registration. GoDaddy typically offers domain registration at a lower cost than AWS Route 53, which has domain registration prices starting around $12 per year for a .com domain. GoDaddy sometimes offers discounts for the first year or ongoing promotions, so domain registration could be cheaper through GoDaddy. DNS management. GoDaddy offers DNS services with domain registration. Okay, but for AWS services like S3, you will need to manage DNS records to point to your S3 bucket or other AWS services. While GoDaddy's DNS management is generally free with domain registration, it may not offer the same level of flexibility, speed, and integration as Route 53. AWS Route 53 charges separately for domain registration, DNS queries, and health checks. DNS queries are priced based on the number of queries made. If you expect a large volume of traffic, Route 53 could end up costing more due to higher query prices. However, it is tightly integrated with AWS services and offers features like routing policies, latency based routing, and more. S3 hosting. If you're using S3 for static website hosting, you'll still need DNS management to route traffic from your domain to the S3 bucket. You can configure GoDaddy DNS to route traffic to your S3 bucket, but this may involve manual configuration than using Route 53 where integration is seamless. Uh, Cost comparison. GoDaddy, you would only pay for the domain registration and DNS management, which might be included in the domain registration cost. The only additional cost would be the usage of AWS services like S3, which has its own cost structure. AWS Route 53, you would pay for both domain registration and DNS queries. The cost can increase if your website has high traffic, as DNS queries are priced based on usage. In summary, GoDaddy could be cheaper for domain registration, but if you want deeper integration with AWS services, easier configuration, and potentially more robust DNS management features, Route 53 may be worth the additional cost. If your domain has low traffic and don't need additional or advanced routing features, GoDaddy should be a cost-effective option. Um, so if you have a question like if my domain is in GoDaddy and I'm using serverless architecture in AWS for it using S3, API Gateway, Lambda, and DynamoDB, will it be cheaper than having my domain in if my domain is in Route 53? So in a serverless architecture using AWS services like S3, API Gateway, Lambda, and DynamoDB, the cost of hosting your domain in GoDaddy versus AWS Route 53 can differ based on several factors. Here's a breakdown. Domain registration, as discussed above, um, GoDaddy typically offers domain registration at a lower price compared to AWS Route 53. For example, domain registration through GoDaddy for a .com domain usually costs around 10 to 15 per year depending on promotions. Route 53 AWS charges approximately $12 per year for a .com domain, so GoDaddy might be slightly cheaper for domain registration in this case. GoDaddy offers DNS services with domain registration, which should be sufficient for basic routing to your AWS services. You can manually configure DNS records to route traffic to your S3 bucket, API gateway, or other AWS resources. However, GoDaddy's DNS is generally not as flexible or rich feature as Route 53. For cost, GoDaddy's DNS management is generally included with the domain registration cost. Additional features or services may come at extra charges, but for basic routing, it's typically free. Route 53, AWS Route 53 is a highly scalable and feature-rich DNS service with tight integration into the AWS ecosystem. It supports advanced routing policies like latency-based routing, failover, weighted routing, etc. If you're using AWS heavily, Route 53 offers seamless integration, including automatic updates to DNS records when record resources like load balancers or EC2 instances change IPs. Cost Route 53 charges 40 cents per hosted zone per month and 40 cents per million DNS queries for the first 1 billion queries per month. If you have high traffic or need complex routing features, Route 53 could end up being more expensive. Serverless architecture costs, GoDaddy DNS plus AWS services. In this case, you're paying for the AWS services themselves, S3, API Gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB, and the domain registration for the GoDaddy. For basic DNS routing through GoDaddy, the cost of routing is negligible since it's included in your domain registration. However, if you're routing traffic through your API gateway or other AWS services, you'll still be charged for those AWS services based on their usage. Route 53 plus AWS services. If you use Route 53 for DNS management, you'd pay both for the domain registration as same as above and DNS queries. For example, a hosted zone will cost about 40 cents per month. DNS queries will cost 40 cents per million queries for the first 1 billion queries, which is cheaper. GoDaddy might be cheaper for domain registration, and you're unlikely to see a significant difference in pricing for DNS management unless you have complex routing needs or high traffic. The AWS services you're using, S3 API Gateway, Lambda, DynamoDB, will have their own costs, which are the same whether your domain is in GoDaddy or Route 53. Route 53 is better suited if you need advanced features, latency-based routing, failover, automatic integration with AWS services, or if you're already deeply integrated with the AWS ecosystem and prefer seamless management. So, for conclusion, if you're looking to minimize cost, GoDaddy for domain registration and DNS is likely cheaper as it offers more affordable domain registration and free DNS management. If you require more advanced DNS features or tight AWS integration, Route 53 might be worth the additional cost, but for simple use cases, GoDaddy would likely suffice and keep costs lower. So, why is Route 53 charging for the DNS queries when it's already owned by AWS compared to GoDaddy, where DNS queries are free? Is the DNS queries free in GoDaddy? So the difference in pricing for DNS queries between Route 53 and GoDaddy stems from the business model and the scale of services offered by each provider. Here's why Route 53 charges for DNS queries even though it is part of AWS and GoDaddy doesn't. Service and feature set. Route 53 is designed to be highly scalable, robust, and feature-rich DNS service with deep integration into the AWS ecosystem. It offers advanced features like latency-based routing, route traffic to the AWS region with the lowest latency, geo-routing, routes traffic based on the geographic location of users. Failover routing ensures that DNS requests are routed to healthy resources in case of failure. Health checks monitors the health of resources and automatic adjusts DNS records based on health status. Private DNS allows you to configure DNS for VPCs in AWS for internal use. GoDaddy, on the other hand, provides a simple DNS service that is mostly intended for basic domain routing. GoDaddy's DNS offering is not as feature-rich or highly integrated with advanced cloud infrastructure, which is why they doesn't charge for DNS queries in most cases. Scalability and global infrastructure. AWS Route 53 is a global, highly distributed DNS service with low latency DNS resolutions and the ability to handle millions or even billions of queries. To provide this level of scale, AWS operates a massive network of DNS servers worldwide to handle DNS queries reliably and quickly. This cost, example, network infrastructure or server maintenance, etc., are factored into the query pricing. GoDaddy might not have the same level of global infrastructure or scalability requirements, as their DNS is more lightweight and oriented toward typically small to medium sized website use cases. Their cost structure doesn't need to factor in as much infrastructure for global distribution, allowing them to offer DNS queries for free. Um, Pricing model and revenue generation. AWS is a cloud service provider focused on providing high availability, enterprise grade infrastructure and services to maintain, scale their services. Okay, let's prepare this question. Before I forget, I transfer my domain in GoDaddy to Route 53, and how much will it it cost me? Okay, so before we answer that question, let's continue. GoDaddy, on the other hand, is primarily a domain registrar and web hosting company. They monetize their services mainly through domain registration, web hosting, and other related services rather than charging for DNS queries. As a result, they typically offer DNS queries for a free as a value-added feature that complements their core business. Target audience. AWS Route 53 is targeted at businesses that require high availability, enterprise scale services, and fine-grained control over their DNS configurations. These businesses typically understand and accept the cost of DNS queries as part of their overall infrastructure. GoDaddy typically caters to small businesses and individual users who need basic services including domain registration, DNS management. Offering free DNS queries aligns with GoDaddy's goal of making it easier for individuals and small businesses to get online without worrying about additional cost. Yeah, I would like to share my previous company. Share previous company or clients problem. Okay. Okay. So usage pattern. Um, for AWS Route 53, DNS queries are priced to reflect usage at scale. Enterprises, apps, and website hosted on AWS often handle millions of DNS queries daily, especially with services like API Gateway, S3, Elastic Load Balancer for these high traffic environments. Route 53 pricing model is more scalable. In contrast, GoDaddy's customer base generally experiences lower line traffic volumes and does not require the same level of scalability or flexibility in DNS resolution. Okay, so while AWS Route 53 charges for DNS queries to cover the cost of operating a highly scalable global distribute infrastructure with advanced features, GoDaddy simply offers simpler free DNS services as part of its domain registration and hosting offerings. Route 53's charges are aligned with its premium features, scalability, and enterprise focus, whereas GoDaddy's provides basic DNS management for free, focusing on simplicity and ease of use for smaller scale users. Okay, so next is, can I transfer my domain? So yes, you can transfer your domain from GoDaddy to AWS Route 53, and the process is straightforward, but here's what you need to know. Steps to transfer your domain from GoDaddy to Route 53. Prepare your domain for transfer, create a hosted zone, and unlock the domain in your GoDaddy account. Domains are usually locked to prevent unauthorized transfers. So you'll need to unlock it first. Obtain the EPP authorization code. This is a code that GoDaddy provides for domain transfer. You will need to request it through your GoDaddy account and keep it handy for the process, for the transfer process. Create a hosted zone in Route 53, AWS. In AWS, create a hosted zone in Route 53 for the domain you are transferring. This will allow you to manage DNS settings for the domain once it's transferred. Can you hear my son crying? Oh man. Okay, so create a hosted zone in Route 53. In AWS, create a hosted zone in Route 53 for the, yeah. So initiate the transfer in Route 53. In the Route 53 console, go to domain registration and initiate the transfer process by entering the domain name. Oh man. AWS will check the domain and process the transfer request. You may be able to ask to confirm the transfer via email sent to domain's administrative contact. Wait for transfer to complete. Domain transfers can take 5 to 7 days to complete. What? During this period, the domain will remain functional, but you cannot make certain changes like updating. Cost of transferring a domain to Route 53. When you transfer a domain to Route 53, you must renew the domain for an additional year during the transfer process. The cost of transferring a domain typically includes the cost of 1 year renewal. Typical cost for a .com domain, this would cost around about $12 per year for both the transfer and the renewal. The pricing may vary for other top-level domains. Additional costs to consider: DNS hosting. Once the domain is transferred to Route 53, you'll need to pay for DNS hosting. The cost is $50 per hosted zone per month. A hosted zone is the container for DNS records, like A records, CNAME records for your domain. If you're using Route 53 for DNS management, which you likely will, it will cost 50 cents per month for the hosted zone plus charges for DNS queries, around 40 cents per million queries. That's cheap, but the hosted zone, yeah, 50 cents per year for just the hosted zone is not. Summary of cost: transfer fee for a .com $12 per year, hosted zones $50 per month, DNS queries for the first 1 billion queries per month. Transfers of advantages of transferring to Route 53: seamless integration with other AWS services, advanced DNS features like latency-based routing, scalable and designed for enterprise level use, making a good choice if you're, yeah, okay. So next is Okay, I'm going to share a previous example. We have a client before. They are Singapore client. Their their clients are those big shopping malls like Takashimaya. What other are malls there? I forgot. So their clients are those companies, and they're using AWS for to serve the services that they're offering. But yeah, so the revenue is like the expenses of the company is more than what they're earning, what the money that's coming in from their clients. And yeah, I think that is why AWS really is very expensive. If you're going to use AWS to to oh man, I cannot concentrate. My son is crying for like an hour already. I wanna throw the tumbler to his mother now. Um, man. Okay, so yeah, so AWS is very expensive. Um, if your clients are not multi-million companies, then you should not use AWS as your offering. You'll bankrupt yourself. Okay, so is GoDaddy using AWS services? Let's see. So yes, GoDaddy uses AWS services for various parts of its infrastructure, although GoDaddy is not GoDaddy uses AWS for various parts of its infrastructure, although GoDaddy is not exclusively hosted on AWS. GoDaddy, being one of the largest domain registrar and web hosting providers, relies on cloud computing for scalability, reliability, and to handle the demands of millions of its customers. Here's how GoDaddy might use AWS services. Cloud infrastructure. AWS has migrated some of its workloads to the cloud to improve scalability and reduce infrastructure management complexity. It is known to use Amazon Web Services for certain parts of its infrastructure, including EC2, S3, and RDS. Uh, for other databases services to handle large scale databases, DNS hosting. While GoDaddy has its own DNS infrastructure, it's possible that GoDaddy leverages AWS for certain DNS related services, especially as demand grows for high availability DNS services and complex routing. However, GoDaddy primarily manages DNS through its own infrastructure rather than relying on AWS Route 53. Content delivery and media storage. GoDaddy also utilizes CloudFront, Amazon's CDN service for delivering content faster to users globally. CloudFront helps optimize content delivery for GoDaddy's customers using its website hosting and content management systems. AI and machine learning. GoDaddy might use AWS AI and machine learning services like Amazon SageMaker for analytics, customer experience improvements, and personalized services. Web hosting. GoDaddy provides managed hosting services and is known to use a variety of cloud platforms, including AWS, to handle scalable web hosting solutions. Like they likely leverage AWS EC2 instances for providing web hosting resources for customers. For conclusion, while GoDaddy uses AWS for some parts of its infrastructure, it is not fully hosted on AWS. GoDaddy has its own proprietary systems for domain registration, DNS management, and hosting. They use AWS alongside their own infrastructure to provide reliable and scalable services to their customers. However, as a major player in the domain and hosting market, GoDaddy services are diverse and they may use a variety of cloud providers and technologies to meet customer needs. All right. Ay, nako. Okay, so let's commit this. Right, insert. This is nice. This is good. I'll go for a walk now. Okay, that's it. Thanks. Um, I'll go and copy and paste this things here. All right, so cool. Thanks. Bye.